Hey there, back at you with some RTD news updates. And so today's theme is bailouts, bail-in, European ECB. Um, oh man, it's unraveling. So just a couple articles I'm gonna get to in a minute, just to show you how dangerous the times we are in. And so with that, some good news is the idea that RTD and rethinking the dollar is designed to get people to begin to ask the right questions. I mean, if you're watching this, you're probably aware of what's going on globally, but there's a lot of people who may not know, family, friends, and just regular everyday citizens that do business with the dollar as well as other currencies, but don't know the underworkings of it. And so one thing that I always want to do is find a way to try to get directly to the people to engage them without trying to seem like I'm preaching or just spewing my viewpoints onto people. And I found that the most effective way is to get people themselves to directly ask the question, what is money and what is a dollar? And so I've actually come up with some things, been working hard on kind of revamping my site. And before I get into the news, wanted to actually take you through it real quick, give you something to look at and see if you think that the idea of getting people to ask the question themselves or to come directly to you because of something that it causes a trigger for them to want to know. And so with that being the case, here's the website. Just did some revamping. And one of the things that I'm glad and happy to share with you guys is the idea of not only providing educational tools such as the quiz and the book here and the news that I post on Facebook and videos like this, but more importantly, I'm really excited about what I call monetary awareness shirts. And so here I have a variety of shirts, designs that I've come up with, which all have a symbolic meaning behind it. We have the financial matrix, which is just everything that we've been told and taught has value in the form of using the economist John Exter's pyramid. I have Andrew Jackson, the bank slayer. I mean, just the concept of his role in central banking is crucial. And then, of course, the war on cash and just the concept of monetary freedom, which is something we need to get back to. And so I'll get into that a little later. Other than that, a couple other things I tweaked, but sweet and simple. Looking forward to definitely giving you guys a way to basically engage your family and friends. And I think these shirts will definitely do it. So let's dive into the news. First one, James Rickards. This article here is from the Daily Reckoning, and it's his concern about China. And it's called, Is China About to Shock the Market? And so this article here has a lot of similarities about the same concerns as my past guest on RTD, Itai Friedman, how he said that he really felt that China was going to be the catalyst for the monetary breakdown slash whatever is to come is going to originate in China. And so here, James Rickard, he hints at the fact that the whole Shanghai Accord, as he put it, which was an agreement reached between the U.S. and China on pegging the yuan to the dollar at a fixed rate, was designed to basically stabilize the Chinese debt fiasco as well as keep the markets in America afloat. And he's saying basically that, right now we're at all-time highs based upon the fact that the yuan is slipping and the dollars or the yuan has been steady rather, and the dollar has been slowly but surely gaining value in comparison to the yuan. I mean, sorry, to the euro and the yen. And so here he goes to a nice, well laid out viewpoint on how China itself is struggling under weight of too much debt, how China needs economic relief. China cheapens the Chinese yuan again, and he talks about the three attacks or three blows directly from China with the last three devaluations, one in I think it was August of last year, one December, January of this current year, and the one that's been going on the last month and is currently underway now. How the yuan has been slowly but surely being devalued intentionally by the Chinese, according to Mr. Rickers here, and it's going to cause a response from the U.S. and vice versa, to which it won't be pretty. And he links it to the stock market. He said that all prior to devaluations up to this point all resulted in all-time highs of the U.S. stock market. And he goes on to talk about how the Dow is at 18,000 and S&P is closer to 2. But after every devaluation, the stock market usually drops significantly. And he's saying that the next time it happens, the stock market will drop, and then the U.S. will have a chance to respond via some type of easing and things like that, and how they use just the mentioning of a height rate, how that really shakes up things on the Chinese yuan side. So definitely a good article to check out. There's more in-depth information that I'm not going to touch right now, but I'll leave that to you to read because I want to try to get through this with a reasonable time. The next one, it's about the Fed. So we have the Fed meeting coming up pretty soon where they're going to discuss the rate hike and things like that, if they can or can't. And everyone who knows they really can't, but they're going to continue to play that sad song as if they really can. But it says here, Fed officials push back against calls to overhaul central bank's structure. And so there's apparently some type of conversation amongst politicians on the need to begin restructuring and really looking at the underlines and the underpinnings of the Federal Reserve Bank in general and all the board members and how it's structured, saying that it's kind of unfair to the public, being that it's quasi-private and it's not. So the writer of this article here goes and basically just mentions how he gives his take, but yet at the end of the day, the bank is private and the people who are appointed are all a part of the banking system in general. So there's no real way of monitoring and keeping track other than just to end the idea of a centralized bank, and more importantly, the fractional reserve system itself, which is the reason for all this debt. And so here it quotes a lot of presidents of the federal banks, who all say that everything's fine, there's no need to restructure everything, and it actually works best that the government, is not directly in charge, because they wouldn't be able to control themselves and monitor themselves if they had control of the money and politics and stuff like that. So all the people who are in favor of it are, of course, employees of the Fed, and so they are all for it. So just some more quotes from everybody here. That's it's more of a watered down, more user-friendly type of article here. But the fact that it's being brought up and it's supposedly supported by Hillary's camp and her desire also to begin restructuring the Fed. But everyone who kind of knows the whole backings behind the whole Hillary Clinton campaign has to do with Wall Street and things like that. So these people are all mingled together. So you really can't take this as being truthful. So, but this is just talk from the Fed, gives the people something to talk about and things like that. And it's a little informative, to find out that they actually mention in here that they are private in a sense. The next one, I thought this was interesting here. This is about digital currency, and being that the EU is in big trouble and capital flight is happening all over the world for the most part because people are afraid to park their money in the banks. So more people are getting involved in digital currency. So here it says the EU to register digital currency users record Bitcoin transactions. So this here is from Coinbase, or the Cointelegraph, I'm sorry. And so it goes on, it's quite short, but it basically saying that there's a push now. There's been some things brought up on the importance of countries beginning to track transactions and build a database, a private database that keeps track of people who utilize digital currencies. And once again, the typical spiel is always the same. It says the EU commissioners ambitious plan to create a centralized database of decentralized digital currency user presents two core problems: violation of personal data and their disturbingly poor quality of cybersecurity. And so the idea is that, because of all the terrorist issues happening in Europe now, the digital currency is one way that people can fund it and things like that. So they're really trying to play the recent terrorist attacks in various countries on the idea that, it's funded by somebody, so they must be using digital currency. And so we have to keep our eyes on it, we have to track it, and we have to monitor it and restrict it. It just shows how threatened they are by the idea of monetary freedom. People having the choice to choose what they want to use that's decentralized, but still, there's a blockchain that kind of keeps track of transactions, but it's not controlled by any one person. So this is just, more of what's happening, being that the banking system's in trouble. They want to do their best to try to limit people's freedom. Next one. Why a dollar should be only a name for a unit of gold. So this is an article by Mises Institute, and on the surface, it's good. Under the surface, I kind of had a problem with this just because it only mentions gold, and it starts off with something that I thought was like, that's not 100% truth. Prior to 1933, the name dollar was used to refer to a unit of gold that weighed 23.22 grains. Okay, but that's not 100% true. a dollar, technically, according to the Coinage Act of 1792, states that a dollar is a measurement of silver. I think it's 270, 370, some grains of silver. But silver itself, the word dollar, was associated hand in hand for a lot longer period of time than the actual roll of gold becoming the term for a dollar, which happened late 1800s. So that right there just starts off that you know that he's a pro gold only type of person. And if no, of course, you know, if you got either one or you are aware of both of those metals as money, you're fine. But I just thought it was kind of odd that, you know, he starts off, you know, pro gold as opposed to just pro choice in metals, period. But he goes on to give a little history about how the concept of defining weights and things like that throughout the transaction between countries, and you know how prior to now, when paper became the primary measurement of exchanging and redeeming and purchasing goods, they were just basically using weights. And so he talks about how the British pound was, say, 0.25 of an ounce of gold, and the dollar was 0.05 ounce of a gold. So you know it was a 5-to-1 ratio because it was 5 times more gold in the coin type of thing. So gives a little historical information and talks about how it broke down after the Bretton Woods Agreement, and how there's a great opportunity in holding gold, being that it always goes up because of the manipulation of governments and central banks basically just printing paper and you know, things like that. So good article, kind of skewed in the fact that, you know, he's a only pro gold, and I'm sure he, you know, values silver as well, but I thought that was kind of different. So let's get into some more of the crisis type things here. I believe that Italy, you know, and a lot of the European banks that are basically insolvent are going to be a major catalyst in this whole restructuring of our monetary system. And right now, Italy is getting a lot of airplay as far as the fact that they have this Monte Paschi bank that it's basically, I guess, total is 360 billion euros that are tied into non-performing loans in Italy in general. And so a lot of the banks are struggling because they're, you know, they basically, you know, they're broke, they're insolvent institutions. And so the question now, based upon this article here, is who's going to come and be that, you know, as it says here, let me scroll down, who's going to be that white knight? Who's going to come in and save these banks from complete disaster and basically robbing the people who invested in them? And so it talks about, just gives a lot of figures as to how and why the banks are bad, and how the non-performing loans and are pretty much, you know, aren't worth anything. So they're on the books and looking to be taken off somehow, some way. And it's going to boil down to either a bailout or a bail-in. And so the fact that they even mentioned bail-in lets, you know, the depositors know that them being creditors, that they're going to be called upon to save the day at the end of the day, because the government itself, you know, can't produce money because they are they gave up their right to actually produce currency to bail out the bank. So it's dependent upon the central bank or the people, and at the end of the day, it's going to be people. But yet here, a great article just talks about, you know, the idea that they're trying to formulate some private investors, but nobody with money from a private standpoint are willing to back it. It says the privately backed bank, which is still under discussion and could change, would involve a multi-layered deal to rid Monte Paschi of 10 billion of net non-performing loans and recapitalization worth up to 5 billion, says this year, whatever. But truth is, nobody in a right frame of mind is going to borrow loan money to somebody they know they can't get it back from. So once again, there'll be a bail-in or bail-out rather, and bail-in in Italy with this bank here. And I just feel for the depositors, because they're not, majority of them are aware of having a true understanding of monetary awareness in regards to how the banking system operates. So it's going to come back to bite them in the butt. And then here's two more, and all to do with the ECB. And so Mario Draghi, same spiel, talks about the Italian banks and how he actually hints at the fact that a restructuring of using taxpayers being put on the hook for bank failures, distressed institutions must first look for private sources of capital to get themselves out of trouble, then impose losses. So this is him saying they should first look for outside capital. If that doesn't work, then they should impose losses on shareholders and creditors. Who are the shareholder and creditors? The depositors. More information, great article, but yet Draghi is on board with it. Last one, more Draghi. Europe faces banking crisis as German bonds run out. So basically, the quantitative easing that the ECB has been doing, purchasing somewhat good debt from Germany, is no longer available. They're running out of debt to buy. So the article has to do with the fact that, there's nothing worth buying because they set a policy for themselves that said they can't buy junk. And the only thing left is junk. So they're going to run into liquidity crisis pretty soon. So it just talks about here how they can't buy bonds from any institution, especially banks, where it's lower than the actual savings and deposits rate that creditors slash depositors get on their deposits in the bank. So basically it's zero. So they can't buy zero, because they can't get nothing back from zero. So anyway, more confusion, man. But this goes back to the point of the idea of needing monetary awareness. And so these shirts here, just to give you a quick link, and I'll include the post down below. But I've done is basically come up with these ideas here to share with the people. So I wear them, and so I got my family wearing them. So the goal is to get people to ask questions. And so here's a store here, the Rethinking It Out store. And so basically in this store here, I have some free material that I want to get people to read firsthand, and it has to do with some books that I published and made free that's available: Unconstitutional Fiat Money, Why is the Dollar Shrinking? And I have more books that, that I'm going to put on here as well. But the shirts here, affordable, $21, $22. Something to get people to ask you a question. Whoa, what does that mean? And then you can go in and tell them what your concept of a monetary awareness is, or feel free to point to some videos here just to get people asking questions. Like right now, in my opinion, is the best and most important time for people to take interest in monetary matters, because the system around them is collapsing, is corroding, and people stand to lose a lot if they're not aware. So that being the case, check these shirts out here, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this interview. Until next time.